thank you for having me on, Megan, Zane, and the Protea team. Love working with you guys and respect you a lot. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll fly through and, a little bit about me and Azur as a whole, and then we can kind of save a little bit more of the time for questions. Myself, I'm a vice president at Azur Associates. We're based in Napa. I sit in Sonoma County. I have an office in Healdsburg, so we kind of make sure we kind of have wine country covered, if you will. My background is in accounting, started at the Big Four, did the CPA route. My first client was Duckhorn Winery. Worked with Duckhorn for several years while they were private, and then during the PCAOB public uplift of the accounting procedures. So that's what kind of got me exposed into the wine industry. And they actually had a few transactions, Costa Brown and Calera at the time, that we were folding in, rolling up into the company. So that exposed me to M&A and the wine industry, if we want to go way back. Following those years, I worked at Deloitte and I did some investment banking while I lived in New York City for a short stint. And all of that brought me back to California and wanted to be in the wine industry, and specifically wanted to be in advisory and it's always been fascinating to me, and it's a very niche of a category. So a lot of big banks don't necessarily have that full-scale expertise when you're talking about small, medium-sized wineries, although, the Zur has the ability to work with full-size wineries. But fell in love with that industry and that niche, and I've been now with Azur for just going on 3 years. Where Azur Associates really differentiates ourselves is that, and I'll put up our partner slide in a minute, we were started on the premise that we didn't want to be a single service provider. We didn't just want to do fractional CFO or route to market or what have you. We wanted to be a comprehensive service provider to the wine industry. It was very important that was our goal, and it turns out actually that enables best practices for each of our services. So one hand kind of washes the other, if you will, in terms of strategic advisory, enabling our M&A practice enabling our fractional CFO practice, and so on. So it's really been important to us that we are representing the industry and the folks who are actually out there doing the work. And here's that slide I was mentioning. This is the team. And what I'll mainly point out here is the experience over off on the right. Everyone kind of comes from different backgrounds, but most of the folks here spend a lot of time at Constellation, Robert Mondavi, Gallo, and Treasury. You'll notice that each partner has a subject matter expertise. Emily, for example, is our managing director in DTC and brand marketing, Dale in strategic insights. We have a winemaker on staff, which is very important to our M&A process, and all around, that's Matt Parrish. He's fantastic, a great add to the process, and a great add to the team, I should say. And then Ed LeMay, obviously, in route to market and wholesale. And we were founded by Pat DeLong, who's just a wine industry vet through and through, has been in the for 30 years and held various roles in, executive roles from CFO, CEO, you name it. So he heads the group and does a fantastic job of that. This is a little bit on our practice. As I was mentioning, mostly what I do is I sit on the M&A side of things. This is kind of our value adds, our experience, functional and operational perspectives. Extremely important, when you talk about an M&A process, understanding through and through, what your client might represent in terms of, going to market, or on the buy side of M&A, what's going to best enable, a client if they're going to be on the buy side of a transaction. Consulting, similarly, go into a little bit more of this, but I think it kind of speaks for itself in their experience and what we do. I have a high level timeline here. Obviously, this is not a one-size-fits-all, but most folks are curious in what a traditional or a typical timeline will look like for a sell-side M&A process, and how that really is anywhere from the very, very fast side of things, 6 to 7 months, all the way to some projects will extend longer than a year if the landscape, kind of allows it. And that's not the goal, obviously, but yeah, these processes can take a long time when you want the right outcome. This is just a slide on the importance of transaction considerations and what we focus on, in terms of valuation, what's most important to our clients, in terms of investors. Throwing in a case study of a recent transaction that we completed was Arista Winery. And we represented the McWilliams family in that transaction. And that was if you're familiar with the properties on West Side Road in Sonoma County, just best of class in terms of the estate and the brand. The brand Arista was not included in the transaction, but the buyer, Chris Underwood of Young's Holdings, really saw the value in the estate and all the investment that the McWilliams family had committed to the land and to the infrastructure, and that was another example of a fantastic transaction from everyone involved. Both parties walked away incredibly happy. So very proud. And that closed earlier this year, in February. And then, this is a few of our deals that we're working on right now. It's just high level. I'll kind of just breeze through that. But we're not restricted to Napa or Sonoma. I mean, we work with international companies, and while that might not be our expertise on what's happening in old world, we have the contacts and we have the ability to certainly assist in those transactions. And a lot of what we do internationally is international companies investing in domestic businesses here. And that's about it. And I attached, if this group isn't familiar, we as a company compile an annual report that is very operational in nature in terms of what's happening in the wine industry, top to bottom, from just general production and consumption trends, wine's role in the bev alc landscape, structural changes. This is just another example of how our partnership group leverages all of our different subject matter expertise. And so this is available online, and if you're unable to find it, I'm happy to send it to you. But we've received really positive feedback on our reports. Yeah, and again, all of these insights, better enable us to serve our clients, whether it's consulting or an M&A. And then obviously at the end of all these insights, we do an M&A section, which is here. We break down, all the transactions year to date, valuation, categorization, and that sort of thing. So a few case studies. And yeah, so anyways, I really sprinted through all of that. So I hope you will forgive me if I summarized a little too high level or too quickly, but want to give time to questions and be respectful of everyone's time.
Thank you, Griffin. Does anybody have any questions for him? We've got a few minutes.
Just a couple of notes. The Azur team have been really great to Protea. They've sent us a bunch of referrals in the last year and a half or so, which has been really good. It's nice to have their trust, and Pat and Griffin have been ahead of that. I'm putting together a panel for Win Expo this year, and Ed LeMay is going to be on that panel. So it's that continued deep relationship between Azur and Protea. I've sent over a really small one over to Azur, and even though they generally know they couldn't afford them because they're out in the middle of the country, they were at least willing to have conversations with the client, give them some advice on the best way to go forward. Which is fantastic. Not a lot of advisors would do that. So it has been a really great relationship that I really appreciate.
Thank you, Zane. More referrals coming your way.
Great.